Hello, good evening, and welcome to another edition of the CantinaMX podcast. My name is John Jagu. Glad to have you with us again this evening. This is episode 136. Here on our YouTube page, we are live once a week, usually on Thursdays. Wednesday this week because there's a game on tomorrow. And some of our folks won't be available to join us tomorrow. Our special guest was going to be available to join us tomorrow. So one of the reasons why we're doing it on Wednesday, and I think it works out a little better because we can talk a little bit more about what happened and then what will happen. And then we'll get into the aftermath of what happens this weekend next week. So hopefully you will join us for that. Again, we got a big show. As most of you know, this is the week where the 32 teams that are going to Russia for the World Cup have had to release their rosters. Mexico was no different. We will talk about the players that were released on a 28-man list. And we will talk, of course, about the final. And we will talk about Group G in our continuing series of bringing on guests to talk about certain teams in a group. In this Group G, we are going to talk England. And we're going to let Tom Marshall, a lot of y'all know Tom, he's an Englishman who lives in Guadalajara, does a lot of writing for CantinaMX, but we thought tonight, why not let him talk a little bit about England? So we're going to have Tom talk. I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about Mexico and Mexican soccer as well. So don't feel like it's just going to be all English with Tom. So we'll have him on in about probably about 20 minutes or so, and then of course our panel will join us as they always do. But again, my name is John Jagu. I'm very glad you guys are with us live here on YouTube, and of course you can listen to this and previous editions of our podcast downloaded from the podcast center on iTunes. Chiquis, I noticed Alberto Campa joins us. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, John, doing good. Glad to be on.
I noticed, Chiquis, that we actually have ratings. We have ratings now on our. We have 8 ratings on our podcast now. So we'd love to have more. So for you folks that listen to us and download us, please let us know how we're doing. You can always reach out to us there. You can reach out to us on Twitter and Facebook. I'd love your feedback. We'd love for you to participate. And I hopefully will be able to do that this evening on our podcast as well. So tune in, pull up a chair, crack open a beer, and let's go ahead and start talking some football. Chiquis, big news on Monday. The list was released by Juan Carlos Osorio. 28 players on the list. 5 players, I'm sure, with the thinking that there are 5 players right now that are injured. So these are my backups, so to speak. And they're really, we've been talking about the list since January. It's a feature that we did about once a month here to see who's in, who's out. And the reality, Chiquis, is that from what we thought in January, I don't think it really changed all that much to where we are here in May.
Yeah, I don't see a really huge surprise in the list other than it's my opinion, Rafa Marquez, but yeah, there's the typical same guys that Osorio has been calling up. So
there's been in previous World Cups, especially in the tournament that is right before the World Cup, there's always been players that have really stepped it up, and you think that these guys are gonna, if they weren't on the list before, they're gonna certainly be on the list now. I mean, we saw it in 2010 with Chicharito, with the way that he started off with Chivas scoring. I mean, he scored like 10 goals in 10 games or whatever it was, just completely on fire. Just had a terrific start to his season, and we just didn't see that from practically anybody. Albert, I mean, I can think of any Mexican player in Liga MX or outside of Liga MX that said, you know what, I'm going to have the best 4 months of my life, and I'm going to be in the best shape and the best soccer rhythm I've ever been in. I mean, you're going to have no choice but to pick me, even if I wasn't in your plans, because I'm just killing it right now. And there really hasn't been that player. Now, maybe
I think Chucky impressed a little bit. He scored some goals. He was doing his thing more than any other European.
Well, he was, and to Chucky's credit, Chucky has been doing it all season. So it wasn't as if it just right after Christmas he decided that he wanted to get hot. He's had a terrific season. Now Raúl Jiménez to start playing a little bit better. Layún to start, but these were guys that we knew were gonna be on the team regardless. people could make the argument that maybe Jose Juan Gallito Vasquez has been that guy for Santos. As you know, they're in the final, and the reality is it probably. I think that there's an argument to be made for Gallito to say that he's probably been the most valuable Mexican in Liga MX this year, more so than just about anybody. So maybe you would say what he would be the guy, but he, unfortunately, it has a style of play that just doesn't jive with what Juan Carlos Osorio wants to do. And unfortunately for Gallito, we're not going to have him. And he didn't even make the provisional additional 7 dudes for the 35-man list. So there'll be no Gallito at the World Cup in Russia, which is very very unfortunate, Chiquis.
Yeah, that's weird. I don't know who he would even like. Who would he take over in the current list of the immediate guy that came to my mind was Jonathan Dos Santos, but that would have been a hard sell to take his spot.
Well, they would probably, I mean, if it's hombre por hombre, it would be Jesus Molina. But the way that Juan Carlos Osorio was gushing about Molina at the press conferences, I mean, not only did he say that his aerial game was good, he said it was dominant, and then he said it was, and I quote, dominante. That's exactly how I said it, dominante. So he was really trying to sell Molina. I mean, obviously Molina is going to be in the squad, and a lot of folks, this follow Monterrey said that it might be a deserved call up. I don't get to see Monterrey as often as others. There are other teams that are on my radar that I tend to watch more, so I didn't get to see him play. But again, if that's what Juan Carlos Osorio wants to do. He wants to make sure that Mexico is going to limit their liability in the set pieces. And the one thing I will say about Molina compared to some of the other midfielders is that he actually plays defense. So maybe that won't be such a bad thing to have a guy like that on the squad. So because in my opinion, that's the biggest problem that Mexico's formation has is whoever's supposed to be the defensive midfielder tends to forget that he's the defensive midfielder and leaves like a 40-yard hole between him and the back line when they're attacking. So that's there's no cover. There's no cover for the back line. But it is 28 guys, and I've noticed that the Joel Aceves has joined us from somewhere in Southern California at an undisclosed location. Perhaps Irvine, perhaps South Los Angeles. He won't tell us. He won't tell us. It could be somewhere else entirely. But we're happy to have him on. Joel Aceves, how are you?
Doing good, Yon. Glad to be back.
Well, we are glad that you were back with us, Joel. Joel, there's been you are very very lucky to be on when you do, because when we do Chivas Talk, I always say the first Chivas that comes on gets the
gets the conch.
Not only gets the conch, but just gets a. And you got to get the full one. They got to get the full one. The first Chivas will come on. So so congratulations for that, Joel. Joel, 28 men were named to the roster. Chiquis and I, when we started the show, mentioned that this is an exercise that hicimos un ejercicio periodístico. Starting in January, where once a month we'd touch a little on kind of like a roster watch, and there really wasn't anybody that kind of played themselves on and people played themselves off. I mean, there were really no real surprises at all to this 28-man list.
Yeah, just the usual disappointment from fans when they don't see their favorite players make the squad.
Did your favorite player make the squad, Joel?
Yeah. I've always been a Chicharo and even Vela enthusiast.
Yeah.
But I am on the Gallito train. He's a very good player to have, and it's kind of unfortunate for him, because he's very consistent, and for that to still not be enough, because you don't fit the mold of the coach. It could be tough. And he's playing another final. Pretty much he's always playing finals with his teams. That speaks volumes of the quality player he is. And Chivas suffered a lot when they let him go. You know, they
Not the best decision, yes, but to be fair to Chivas, in the first season after the final, Gallito did not have a very good season. Obviously, he played a lot better,
yeah,
and he
yeah,
kept playing with
and
Santos.
and but you know what, John? Also, it's you know, you have to keep in mind they're half seasons really. So you know, I would say he didn't have enough time to pick it up.
To get it together for Chivas. Yes, I mean, and the reality, Joel, is that Gallito, out of you think of who are the stars of Liga MX, and
Oh yeah,
4 or 5 out of out of the guys you're going to pick are going to be foreign players. So, as far as Mexican players in Liga MX, it's hard for me to pinpoint anybody else that had a better season than Gallito Vasquez did for Santos as what I call the most valuable Mexican in Liga MX.
yeah.
And I mean, and for that not to, like you said, for that not to be enough, it has to be a very bitter pill to swallow for him and really for a lot of fans, because you want to see your best players at the World Cup, regardless of whether they fit the scheme or not. I mean,
I'd actually side with Osorio though on this. I mean, I don't see it a big deal leaving him out. Just like I don't see a big deal of Pizarro being left out. And I don't think that Gallito was like the only difference maker. I would say Giannini was the guy to actually bring Santos up to where they're at. Gallito played a part, but as a defensive player or a defensive mid, I don't see him like the single guy to lift Santos up to the final. Just as I don't think he would be a huge plus for the national team in the World Cup. He might do well, but
well,
that'll be something to look at if Mexico gets really burned and we think, oh, Gallito would have been there, and that would have provided like some defense.
the one thing I will say
But
about Gallito that I think that is probably the most unsung part of his game is that what he does his job so well, as far as breaking up plays and and covering, and like I said, and
yeah.
being that first line of defense, that he allows the Osvalditos and the Hector Herreras and those guys to do what they do best,
Yes.
which is attack, and then not have to worry so much about coming back on defense, or playing in the perimeter, pisando el área, so to speak.
And
That's
he's
what makes
proved
Gaito so good. Go ahead.
and he's proven he can hold his own. Our to
Yes,
our to go game, John, is the World Cup match against Croatia.
right. I mean, he took Rakitic and Modric and the other each, whoever that guy, the other guy's name was. He took them to school,
Yeah,
which was very impressive. And you know, not 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 every confrontation that Gallito's going to have is going to be an air, one where he has to have an aerial game. So it's just, it is a bet that Juan Carlos Osorio's made. He said, I am not going to get beat by set pieces, which to me is unfortunate, because I think of the goals that Mexico has allowed in like the past 4 or 5 World Cups, and I am hard pressed, other than the goal against Holland, to remember. Not and penalty kicks aside, those are obviously set pieces, but that's different. But on corner kicks or free kicks, it's hard for me to remember. I'm sure that there are some, but just thinking about the goals. I guess didn't Iran score on a set piece in 2006 on a corner kick? So I mean, it has happened, but it's not 30 or 40% of the goals that Mexico has given up by a long shot. It's that is definitely not the case. So
yeah, Osorio's team gives it up on gaps that the defense leaves and all kinds of other stuff. So you would think that that would be the main concern instead of set pieces or corner
yeah,
kicks.
I mean, shore up your defense. I mean, that was what we asked of him in after the when we had the one time only airing of the Siete Cero podcast, which aired a couple years ago. We said, if he does stick around, he has to shore this up, and then he gets, the next big chance to see has he shored it up is against Germany, and obviously the answer was no. So I think that any Mexico fan, having seen what happened to Mexico in those 2 games, and even with the way that kind of Portugal toyed with them too a little bit, at least in the group stage match, has to be very, very worried about about Mexico's vulnerability on the back, and to me, as a fan aficionado, uh, student of the game, it would seem incredible that a coach would choose to play a system where its main vulnerability is the defense. Particularly the two central defenders. Just totally leave them out on the island. This is we. I mean, it would be one thing if it was Franco Baresi playing back there, but we don't have a Franco Baresi playing back there. Not by a long shot. So that's what makes me nervous, and it should make every Mexico fan nervous going into the World Cup. So when you see Hugo Ayala's name on the list of 28,
Except Carlos Vela. Carlos Vela he's not nervous. He knows that the opponents of Mexico are nervous.
that is very true. That is very true. Well, out of these 28 players, that there may have been a couple of surprises. I mean, obviously Hugo Ayala is one that probably no one is expecting to go to Russia. And Eddie Gutierrez is probably the other one. I think the one who has a really good chance to make it and actually could, maybe be the key that unlocks what Osorio is trying to do is Edson Alvarez. I mean, he could. It might force his hand with injuries to Diego Reyes, and I saw today that Hector Moreno might be a little nicked up. To have Edson Alvarez come on and play that holding midfielder role, that defensive stopper type, that I think he can do really well. And he does have a bit more of the salida, and frankly, he's actually pretty good on the ball. He's pretty technical on the ball. He could be, and this is the optimist speaking. I mean, someone that could be that unexpected thing that the coach doesn't realize he has until he has it, until he needs it. So he might be that particular option for Osorio if some of these injuries end up not hurting the squad, but depleting the squad with the Reyes and apparently Moreno as well. Joel?
Yes, John.
Oh, I just want to make sure you're still there, Joel.
No, aquí estoy.
Now, Joel, you've been in Los Angeles and Carlos Vela has given an awful lot of interviews and given a lot of press time. That is not
Yes.
That is not normal.
No, I think it's one of the plus why he wanted to come to the U.S. instead of like Mexico. I think it was the ambience he was looking for, where they're not constantly attacking you or questioning your every move. So I think the national team is better off for it because you're getting a player that's enjoying himself.
And that's actually the exact Carlos Vela that we want to see at the World Cup. Is Carlos Vela that's enjoying himself. So that is another player that I think Mexico fans should be at least very optimistic about, because it looks like he's in the mood. And I think that even with him playing at LAFC, and again, no disrespect to LAFC, but I mean, it looks like that right now Carlos Vela is Mexico's best offensive weapon, without a doubt.
Yeah, if you see some of the goals he's been scoring, again, no offense to the league, but they're very nice. He's put on some goals,
Yeah, he has, and he scored again last week in their 1-1 draw with, or was it? Yeah, I think it was 1-1 or maybe 2-2 with the New York club. It's his sixth goal in what, about 2 months play. So yeah, he's definitely he's definitely been playing.
But John is we can see he's playing in a position he likes. Is that where Osorio's gonna utilize him?
Well, Osorio did say in his press conference, he called him a media punta, if I'm not mistaken, which is where he's been playing in LAFC. So perhaps we will finally see him. Or perhaps we'll see him have a player play in a position that that is warranted.
Hmm.
And of course, the other big name that was on the list for some, and people were not too thrilled about it, was Giovanni Dos Santos, and I know that Jurgen Damm was on the list, and to me, given the choice between Jurgen Damm and Giovanni Dos Santos, give me Giovanni Dos Santos every day of the week. I know that Jurgen Damm is probably the fastest winger that Mexico has, and I get that and I respect that, but that's all he has. That is all he has is speed, and when Jurgen Damm at the moment of truth has to make a decision, 9 times out of 10 it's the wrong one, and I think that that's the exact opposite of Giovanni Dos Santos. When Giovanni has to make a decision, 9 times out of 10 he makes, if not a decent decision, a good decision. So that to me is the tiebreaker between Giovanni and Jurgen Damm.
He just
And
needs to
also,
make. I'll just say he just needs to make the decision not to disappear during the game. Giovanni, go ahead, Hawaii.
well, one plus also in Giovanni's favor is, his chemistry with Vela. These are players that have played well together before, and then been together since the youth teams.
Yeah, I mean this is the this World Cup should be for Mexico what the Copa America was for Chile. In the sense, that this should, or even what the World Cup should have been for Chile. This is the culmination of these guys that have, with Vela and Giovanni and Hector Moreno and even Chicharito, although he didn't join them until the U20s. I mean,
He
that's
was dropped though. He didn't make the final cut for the under
well,
17.
right, but for the
Like,
U20
but
he did.
yeah, no, but he was, like you said, he was part of that group that had been playing together since the under 17s.
So this is it for them, and again, that to me is the only uh, the barometer that I would use to measure Giovanni and Jurgen Damm now. And like Chiquis had mentioned, Rodolfo Pizarro. Rodolfo Pizarro is a player who's had a very good season for Chivas. Did great in the Conca Champions, but Chivas had problems scoring, and they had problems scoring at home, and they ended up out of 34 games this season, they scored 30. They were able to accumulate only 33 points.
They also didn't win any home games in league play.
If this was a normal league where they had a normal relegation, Chivas would have come extremely close to have been relegated. So that to me, I think, regardless of how now, if I did get to watch Chivas a little more than others, and I did see Pizarro make some very decent plays, and he played some good games. He also played some very bad games too. So we do have that to look at as well. But it is a good thing that we're talking about Guadalajara right now, because we actually have someone joining us. I would assume is in Guadalajara right now. I can't say for sure. I'm not even sure where Joel is right now. But Tom Marshall joins us from Guadalajara ESPN FC. Writer Tom Marshall, thank you very much for joining us here on the CantinaMX podcast.
No worries. How's it going? Yeah, just got back. I was in Mexico City for the last couple of days, but yeah, back in Guadalajara, and it's hot. It's absolutely boiling at the minute.
It is miserably hot here in Austin as well, Tom. I got in my car today. I was doing some work downtown, and when I got in my car, it's at 105 on my. I know it wasn't 105, but it is definitely getting warmer. So you got your visa for Russia, Tom. You're getting ready to go.
Yeah, all sorted. The Russians were kind enough to give me a visa, so yeah, looking forward to it.
Now, Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. You are from Manchester, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm from a town called Rochdale, just outside of Manchester. It's about a 30-minute drive.
So, would you then agree that belligerent ghouls run Manchester schools?
Something like that,
yeah. and then you would go on to say that they have. Oh, I totally forgot the lyrics. Good Lord, I was thinking about this all day. Spineless. Oh man, spineless swines and cemented minds. That's what it is. All right. See, nice to. Well, Tom, we
Yeah.
brought you on. I know that you cover Liga MX, the Mexican national team, and you'll be doing so. And of course, we'll talk about Mexico here shortly. But we did bring you on because we wanted to give you the opportunity to talk to us about England. England released their squad today, and what I thought was just a really cool little video that they did to release their squad for the World Cup, as opposed to a guy showing a crumpled up piece of paper, to the reporters, which is what Juan Carlos Osorio did. So you're going to be in. Are you going to get a chance to go see any of the England games? Have you looked at the schedule to see if that can work for you, Tom?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I think when the World Cup when it starts, it's all. I think it's going to be just hectic. Even in the Confederations Cup, it was difficult to, like sit down and watch games properly. So yeah, it's gonna. I think I'll miss a couple of the England games, but yeah, what can you do? What can you do?
That is.
My friends will be having barbecues back home, like having a good time, and I'll be in Kazan or something.
That's right. You'll be on a third class on the train, 11 o'clock at night, trying to make your deadline and hoping that the wireless works at the next train station. Yeah, I totally understand. Now, Tom, I've been following England. I went to British school in Mexico City when I was a kid, so I have followed English football because I kind of had to then, and then I've stayed with it. And I have to say, as far as World Cup teams go, if I were an England fan, I would be really, really excited about this team. I think that this team because no one is expecting anything of them. I mean, they really have the least amount of pressure I've seen on an England team, and I can't tell you how long. England is lying in the weeds, and they have a great team to be lying in the weeds with.
Yeah, I think it's a good team. Obviously, you look at the favourites for the World Cup, and I think there's a reason, England aren't right up there at the top. But if you talk about a team that, can make an impact, can win games, I think England can do that. There's not big experience. I think there's only 4 or 5 players who were at the last World Cup. So if you compare it to Mexico, where you've got, the majority were at the last World Cup. I think it was 15 of the Mexican squad. But, England. This is like almost a real shift. It's been. I think it described in one of the newspapers like a silent revolution from Gareth Southgate.
Right.
Like nobody's made it's not been like, oh, let's get rid of the old cobwebs and let's start afresh. He's just kind of, just quietly gone about making these decisions, and all of a sudden, Rooney's out. I don't think anybody expects him to be in the squad, but he's been phased out over the last couple of years. Joe Hart, who he's just not been playing well, but the manager at least has had he's the authority to kind of say, right, Joe Hart, you're not playing well, you're not even playing for West Ham, so you stay out of it. Then you got some, I think the exciting thing for England is the likes of Sterling, Rashford, Dele Alli, and Kane. I mean, I think those players potentially, if they play well. But this is the thing with England. If you speak to people back there, and my friends, it's like, for example, Harry Kane. My friends in England call it England Kane. So he scores all the goals for Tottenham, then he comes into England and he's just not the same. I mean, it's natural, really. It's almost like Messi. No, it's like it's never going to be the same. Playing for Barcelona as playing for Argentina. But I think that's the question mark. Can this team actually, play together? And we'll see. I think England is going to be like 4 to 8 years. I think could be a really, really good team. Because you got the under 20 World Cup winners, the under 17, and I know it doesn't always equate to that, but having two generations that are so strong, and all the work that's gone in by the Football Association in terms of youth products and youth systems and the Premier League as well. I mean, there might not be the opportunities in the Premier League for young English players, but in terms of like having good places to learn how to play football, England now is right up there. So that has to come through at some point.
Well, I mean, and that to me is, I think, what makes this English team so inviting, I guess I would say, is because of the fact that, these guys are young, but the fact that they've been killing it in the Premier League as young as they are, to me, is just a fantastic sign. So Tom, what was it that the FA did to give England this revolution of sorts to build from the youth? Were they, are they just tired of getting kicked around and on the international stage, so to speak, and do they think that they need to, take their rightful place among the giants of the sport? Is it a concerted effort by the FA to do that?
100%, yeah, 100%. I mean, obviously, it's known outside of England as like the birthplace of the game. Not so much in England. I don't think people pay much attention to that. But there's a book by Henry Winter called 50 Years of Hurt, and that goes through like all the things that have happened over the years, but he also looks to the future. And the FA, I think it's the 2022 or 2026, they've the goal has been to win the World Cup. It's nothing short of we've got to win the World Cup. And so they put in place all the, because really England never put real emphasis on the youth teams. The clubs would never let the players, they'd never release the players. So you never got like kind of a group of young English players going to England camp together. You get people like Ferguson in the 90s, Alex Ferguson, who just wouldn't let players go. You know what I mean? So then you arrive in the England camp and you're not used to going to international duty and, all those stories in the 2000s, the players like Lampard and Scholes, a lot of those guys now are on TV in England and Ferdinand as well. And they come out and they talk about it and they're saying like, they were so competitive at club level that obviously the Man United and the Liverpool, they didn't hate each other, but they just weren't a team. And then you had the Chelsea players when obviously after Mourinho came. And so I think what England have done is they tried to get rid of that as well by, bringing players in younger into the, the younger youth teams. And really you've seen that with with the World Cup wins recently. I mean, I think the only missing factor now, I think everything's on track. The missing factor is that some of these younger players, like Phil Foden at Manchester City, can they get playing time? It's similar to Mexico in a way. I mean, where are they going to be able to get the minutes under the belt that they need to become these, top international players? And that's really the massive question now surrounding kind of England's future.
Well, I mean, it seems like, as you mentioned, winning the U17 and winning the U20. Well, did they win both, or I thought they just won the U20?
I think they won the. Was it they won the? I can't remember now.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But that, you bring up a very good point, because I remember when that happened, I was thinking, man, and I started racking my brain. I don't think I'd much less seen England win a U tournament, much less even participate in U tournaments. It just didn't happen. And with what you explained earlier, it kind of makes sense why the clubs didn't release their best players. Now I know I did Dallas Cup a couple years ago here in Dallas.
Yeah.
We did the U18 championship was a Liverpool squad, but it was like a Liverpool squad of kids that were never going to be professionals, but we're hoping to get at least a scholarship to play in the States. So it was like a college team. So were those the kinds of players that would it be those clubs that would send the players to England to try and participate in some of these international tournaments in the youth area?
What do you mean, like the from the big clubs?
Yeah, from the big clubs, like the college team, not necessarily the pro team.
Yeah, like I mean, like in England, they're scouting kids like 6, 7, 8 years old, and then for example, where I'm from, probably if you go within a 2-hour drive, I mean, I don't know how many professional clubs there are, but there are a lot. Like it's ridiculous, and I mean, it's and scouts are out there watching 8-year-olds. And this is one of the things in Mexico that nobody ever talks about, but is still badly missing. It's very difficult for a young English kid right now. I mean, I even went for a trial. I went for a trial with Oldham Athletic. You know what I mean? It's so concentrated, the amount of professional clubs that there are there, that it's difficult to escape the system. And that's not like it doesn't happen, but yeah, it's those players, and then it all filters up, and then obviously the England setup is at the top of that. But yeah, I mean, and also it's the style of play as well. They've implemented a style of play, like if you watch the under-17s and the under-20s, they play in the same way, and that's going right through now as well, and even into the women's team. There's there's a very definite kind of, we need to, because of obviously all the years of failures, you know what I mean, not making Euro 2008, and just not being where England should, given the size of the league, given the amount of people that play there, given given the quality of the clubs and stuff, and now they seem to now they're getting it together, no doubt.
Well, like I said, I mean, it seems like the English fans have to be very bullish, not just on their future, but on this tournament. And looking at the group, Tom, there's England starts with Tunisia, and then they play Panama, and then they finish with Belgium. So they could conceivably have a spot in the round of 16 locked up. In addition, would know who they would play because they play on the last day of the of group play, and then no, I'm sorry, they would know. Well, I forget if they play early or late, but they could determine kind of their fate. If we draw Belgium, okay, we're going to go play Colombia, but if we beat them, we might get to play Japan, and then avoid Germany and take our chances with Brazil. So I mean, they can really set themselves up to have a really nice tournament.
Yeah, I mean potentially, yeah, but let's not forget this is a team that lost to Iceland 2 years ago. So I wouldn't say actually in England there's a lot of enthusiasm. I think when it's a bit like Mexico, to be honest. When when you take a step back and like you were saying there, John, it's like it does look pretty good. I've got the squad up here, and you're looking at where these players are playing. Chelsea, Man City, United, Tottenham, Liverpool, Arsenal. They're playing at top clubs. But like I said, there's not a massive amount of experience in the squad. I think the top goal scorers, got 15 goals, Danny Welbeck. And so, yeah, I mean, Panama for me are not a good team. I mean, no matter how you look at it, Panama are not a great side. I mean, they scraped through the CONCACAF qualifying. They did well. Bolillo did a great job, I thought, with them. And at the end of the day, I went to the Panama-Mexico game. It's not easy to play down there. I mean, I remember the Mexico game, it was raining. The pitch is awful. The grass is really long. It's just not. It's not a pleasant place to play as an away team. I mean, that's CONCACAF for you, and Panama used that as well. But yeah, and I think obviously England and Belgium. I mean, heavy favourites for this group, and I think the England-Belgium game should be pretty interesting actually, because I think England, with the way they play under Southgate, because they're not actually very attacking. I mean, you look at some of the players and you think, with Rashford and Sterling and Kane and Dele Alli, you think this is a team that could go on the attack. But to be honest, it's pretty much it's quite conservative. But it's worked with the recent results, and I think against Belgium, because Belgium are a top team, but Roberto Martinez, such a high line, and you look at England's team with you put Rashford on the wing and Sterling, and even someone like Welbeck, then I don't know. I think England can do Belgium some damage, but obviously at the back as well, Belgium are pretty good. I mean, up front, Belgium are pretty good.
So then you expect England to make it through to the next round then?
And yeah. I mean, if they don't, you couldn't ask for an easy group.
Sure.
You know what I mean? I mean, arguably it's two of the worst teams in the tournament. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better group than that.
Yeah, there's no question, and then the round of 16 draw is going to be favorable because the World Cup was very interesting because on either end of the bracket, at groups A and B, and then groups G and H, have groups where they avoided a super giant, and then so they won't even see a super giant until at least the quarterfinals, which is incredible. So if England can manage, like you said, they'll probably qualify to the round of 16, then they'll play either Poland, Japan, Senegal, or is it Colombia? So frankly, it could be any one of those four because that to me is a group that's totally wide, a complete opposite to the England. Belgium.
But I'd say if it's England, Poland, or England, Colombia, then there's not much between them. You know what I mean? That's going to be I think Poland on the day are a really good team as well, especially with Lewandowski. If he's playing, and then Colombia obviously very. Yeah, I think either of those games would be. I think they'd be really quality World Cup games. No type of games you want to see in the knockouts.
How do the English fans feel about Southgate? Do they like him? Is the jury still out? Is this going to determine how he's remembered, what for better or for worse?
Southgate, I think, is I don't think a lot of people have a wild opinion about him. It's just like that's who's there at the minute. You know what I mean? He's not very exciting. I think that in terms of the press, I think he's gradually won them over, to be honest. I think he's just been really kind of straight talking. He's told it exactly like it is. He's explained his decisions, and I think the press have kind of respected him now and said, and they like the fact that he's kind of, this is a changing of the guard, if you like, from the last World Cup. And then everybody in England knows as well that you've got this next generation coming through. Then you put this next generation with, like I said, with Sterling, Kane, Rashford, John Stones, Alexander Arnold, those kind of players. Jordan Pickford even in goal, and then you've got potentially a really, really good team then. So I think people, Southgate is okay. You'll find a lot of people who just really don't like what he does. I mean, for example, he's been playing Kyle Walker as like right centre back, and people hate that. I mean, it's a bit like Osorio as well, because Walker's like very definitely a fullback, but so yeah, I'd say there's not strong feelings towards Southgate, to be honest.
Does Southgate rotate 8 and 9 players at a time from game to game like Osorio, or does he keep it? Does he keep the lineup pretty fresh?
Yeah, I mean, he'll change a couple of players, but not, and he'll change the formation as well, but nothing. I mean, Osorio, obviously has the potential to do that, but I don't think that's going to happen now it comes to the World Cup. I don't think there's much chance of it happening, mate.
How hard was it for you, Tom, to express your inability when you got the royal wedding invitation to say, I'm sorry, thanks but no thanks? I got the final. I got the final in Toluca. I got to go to on Sunday, so I won't be able to.
I'm on a bus. I'm on a bus to Toluca that day. Sorry. Not even joking, but no. I mean, quite honestly, I don't really care about the royal wedding.
I didn't think you would. I was just,
I mean, if anyone's getting married on that day, then I wish them all the best. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And it don't matter if they're royalty or not royalty.
But Tom, given that he's the younger brother, would this make it the royal wedding de Ascenso? It's not the premier one.
It depends if the top one has the money to, it depends if he can do the payoff or not. And I don't know. I've heard they're pretty rich though, them guys, so they're probably all right.
So it wouldn't be the Premier League wedding, but it would be the championship wedding.
Yeah, it's championship. It's like the playoff. It's the big, like the championship playoff.
Now you mentioned Juan Carlos Osorio, Tom, and did you get a chance? Were you in Mexico City when he announced his list, or did you see it on TV like the rest of us?
No, yeah, I just watched it on TV. Yeah, I mean, obviously they only announced the time the day before and stuff like that. So, yeah, no, I didn't get a chance, but no, I thought it was interesting press conference and interesting reaction. No,
yeah, it was. I mean, we were talking before you came on that out of the players that were on the list. I mean, there really were no surprises at all. I mean, it was who he's been using for 6 months.
Yeah,
not a big surprise at all. But one thing I wanted to ask you, Tom, before we jump into Mexico, just to touch it off, and I'm sure that Joel and Beto have questions too. But I've noticed a trend in Europe, and I think we saw it also with England, where they're not going after the big name coaches for national team coaches. Has the appeal to coach a national team has the luster worn off for coaches there, or is it just the national team or the football federations being more pragmatic about who it is that they want to get?
I think these days there's a lot of money to be made in club football. So I think the top managers are basically attracted to the top club jobs, and I think it's the fact that they're working with the players every day. I think managers like that. I think, for example, Osorio. I think managers they're just working their way up the ladder as well. You know what I mean? So, for example, for Southgate, this is a good job because really, if he would have been a club coach, I don't think he might not have even got a Premier League club, to be honest. Sure. He might have been looking down to the Championship. So all of a sudden, you get the England job. You do something good with England, you make a good impression, and then he could walk into a Premier League job. And I think it's similar with Osorio. To be honest, it's like if you look at jobs that Osorio could have got before the Mexico job, that would potentially propel him to a European job, a decent European job, then I think, that's what he wanted from Mexico, because I don't think in Sao Paulo he would have necessarily made that jump. He would have had to go somewhere else first, you know what I mean? So I think a lot of it has to do with, the career paths and stuff. But I think it's going to swing around and stuff. And honestly, John, I think that international football right now, it's just in flux. I mean, nobody knows what's going on. I mean, in the CONCACAF region, it's you got the Nations League, you've got the Gold Cup every 2 years. Still, you got the qualifying, and I don't know. I mean, is Mexico going to play? 80-90% of Mexico games going to be against CONCACAF rivals, and then what's going to happen to the some friendlies? If the Nations League taking place in a lot of these international calendar dates, what's that going to do for Mexico? And I think it's the same in Europe as well. For example, if that is the case in Mexico, then how are you going to attract a good coach to the national team? And then the extension of that is, what's the appeal of international football going to be? In 5-10 years. I don't know. I think the international game is really, really in flux right now.
Joel, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to clarify, because we were talking about the under 17. They did win it. So that was last year. They won it, and I think Tom should be excited because they beat powerhouse Mexico in the group stage. They left Brazil out in the elimination round, and they beat Spain in the final. And they also had the top goal scorer with 8 goals. So just to go on what you were saying, the good job they're doing with the youth teams.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it's like with Mexico. I think there's a couple of things. I think that a lot of the Mexican players who have won the Under-17 World Cup, I think they just felt that was they've achieved. I think they honestly thought, that's it, we've won a World Cup. Like, we're in the newspapers, we're doing it, and I think that's always the worry. So they see this generation of England players now, they can't see that as they've made it. And to be honest, I think the fact that a lot of them play for elite clubs helps. You've got someone like, the best player of that tournament was Phil Foden from Manchester City. I don't think he's going to win the Under-17s World Cup and name the best player and then go back to City and go to Guardiola and be like, hey, Guardiola, look at me, I'm brilliant. Like, I'm amazing. You know what I mean? I won the Under-17s World Cup last week.
Well, Tom, wouldn't you be disappointed if he didn't do that?
If he didn't go back there and I mean, he should be. He needs playing time. I think Guardiola absolutely really likes him, but at the end of the day, it's a process, and he has to realize, or the player in question, all of them have to realize that they've not achieved absolutely anything, because at the end of the day, the Under-17 World Cup is just a bit of an indicator. It's not a kind of a huge achievement. It's a good indicator that things are going well, that your youth systems are working, that you can put a team together, that the potential is you've got a generation of players from which 3, 4. If you get 5 or 6 players from one generation, that's incredible. So that's what I think England will be hoping for. But then the Under-20s generation as well. You put 3, 4, 5 players of that generation together, and all of a sudden, you've got quite a few players.
Now, which U17 team are you talking about there as far as Mexico? Because I'm certainly not the 05 team, because what you're describing as what you truly want to accomplish there is getting 3 or 4 players out of that group. That's exactly what Mexico has playing. That's on that list of 28 names.
Yeah,
they have Giovanni, they have Hector Moreno, and they have Carlos Vela, and Chicharito was one of the final cuts. So they have in essence 4 guys from their U17 of that generation that 12, what is it now? 14 years later, 13 years later.
Yeah, but how many of those would get in the England squad? You know what I mean?
All 3 of them.
Right now.
Oh, right now? Now?
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's like, I'm not like slamming Mexico, but it's relative, you know what I mean? Getting the Mexico squad. But I don't think Giovanni Dos Santos playing for Galaxy and not playing well. People in Mexico complaining about being in the squad. I don't think he's going to get ahead, in this England squad. You know what I mean?
Sure.
You know what I mean? And he's in his prime of his career, and you look where they're playing. Where don't get me wrong, I'm not. They've had good careers, and especially the context of Mexican players going out to Europe. The Vela and the Giovanni, they really broke boundaries. Going to Europe so young, but still they're not. they've not kind of shattered the glass ceiling, you know what I mean, in the way
No, I
that
understand. But
Hugo
what I wanted
Sanchez
to
did.
do is to show the contrast of the team in 2011 that won the U17 World Cup, and I can't, other than La Momia Gomez, I couldn't even tell you a player from that team.
You know something Tom mentioned? You were talking about the rivalry between the players. Taking the club rivalry into the national team, and how they want to have them more go through the whole process of at least having a group that's been together through the youth teams, and that's something that Mexico had been working on, or it was one of their goals to have a group of players go since the under 15 all the way to the under 23, and then by the time they were in the national team, they would have X amount of international games already played together.
Whose plan was that, Joel?
It was from the Nestor when he was the. I knew you were going to see that, John. When he was GM, he did an outline for the youth teams and how they wanted to rope everything together. Not sure how much of that stayed, but I feel good with Dennis working, because he's
he's good. No, but I think Mexico have done that. I think they've been absolutely really successful with doing it, and there's nothing wrong with winning under 17 World Cups either. But I don't know. I think Mexico's problem is different. I think Mexico's problem, I don't know. It's like what Osorio says. These players need to be pushing themselves as much as they can, and that's not happening. You know what I mean? It's just simply not happening. It's not always the players' fault, but they're not playing at the absolute top level that they could play at. And I think that holds Mexico back.
How many Mexico players, Tom, do you think would be a good number to be playing in Europe, other than was like 15 or 16 or whatever it is that are playing over there right now?
Honestly, like 50.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I'm not being ridiculous. I'm like, if you look at Argentina and Brazil, they've got, and that's not saying you can only pick European players, but Euro-based players. But and I think when people talk about Europe and stuff like that, and I feel like some people in Mexico think you're being bigoted or not. It's not. If the Chinese league was the best league in the world with the best competition, you'd be like, Mexican players need to go to China. On the other hand, even if the Mexican league was the best in the world, I'd still say it's good to go out of your country, because I think you just learn so much. And honestly, if I was to name one good positive thing about Mexico at this World Cup, if you're going to say to me, Tom, why should I believe in Mexico? I'd say it's because you've got these generations of players now who have played together for so long and know each other, and the collective bond is really, really strong. And if something is going to happen positive for Mexico in the World Cup, I think it's going to be because of that.
Hey Tom, let me ask a question though on the European players, or the Mexicans going to Europe.
Yeah.
And maybe this is invoking the spirit of Ronnie, but with all the players going to Europe now, and not really seeing a huge increase of success in the World Cups compared to 10, 15 years ago when they were mostly playing in Mexico, is going to Europe really valuable for Mexican players?
Yeah, but I mean, that's relative though to other countries as well, sending players to the best leagues. You know what I mean? And so, like Brazil, like 30, 40 years ago, wouldn't have had many players outside of Brazil, but now Brazil have got absolutely, like, literally hundreds playing in Europe.
2,000.
Oh, so they're keeping pace. They're keeping pace, basically.
So Mexico has been one step behind, and obviously it's now increasing. But even like someone like Costa Rica, obviously they're mainly in MLS these days. But you've even seen over the last 10, 15 years, Hondurans go to Europe and have and do reasonably well. And I think that's the problem. That's why Mexico hasn't suddenly done a lot better. And obviously it's not the only issue. I mean, you can have a team that plays in Mexico and is absolutely ridiculously talented, and they stay there and they do really well. It's not like the be all and end all that, if you've got loads of players in Europe, you're guaranteed success or anything. I mean, of course not. I mean, look at England. I mean, look at England in the last 10 years or so. But
you can say 20 years, Tom. You can say 20 years.
20 goes back to, what does it, 1998? Yeah, probably 22 years, isn't it, really?
Yeah. You
22 years.
Maybe
Euro
you could
96.
Say, maybe you could say 30 years, but but you're talking to Mexico fans, so Tom, we feel your pain. We understand. In fact, I was hoping. I think, unfortunately, I don't think she's going to be available. But I wanted to bring the trash talking Güerita on here to because she doesn't really know the history of World Cup soccer, and I wanted us to describe an incredibly heartbreaking, painful loss. And I was going to have her guess, was it England's loss or Mexico's loss? Because because let's be honest, Tom, both Mexico and England have I mean they raise losing, crashing out in the World Cup to an art form. I mean, it really, can you think of other countries that have had more painful exits than Mexico and England in the World Cup?
I mean, if you go back, then Spain were a bit like that, weren't they? I mean, always that seemed to have a quite decent team, but could never get over that hurdle. But obviously, they've like they're the example, no, for a lot of nations. I think how they've able to kind of break that barrier.
Well, Spain also got really lucky in the sense that they had the two best midfielders in maybe 50, 60 years.
Yeah,
play.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
that helped.
Definitely. But I mean, they've done the right things. They put a style in place. The same thing with the youth teams. They got the youth systems together, and obviously, they've made use of the super clubs. No, I mean they've really, obviously, the Barca, especially Barcelona, but also Real Madrid had quite a few, Ramos and Casillas in those early years. So yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, there are similarities between England and Mexico. I mean, not just going out as well at the tournaments. I think there's this expectation, that probably exceeds what it should. And there's a build up to the tournament that this is the year, this is our time. Nothing can stop us. And in the English press, I mean, it is incredible. But the one thing I would say now, that over the last few tournaments with England, because they've not gone well, that's kind of stopped to a degree. Now people are like going to go to the World Cup, and it's like, oh, let's see how England do. Before it was like, no, we can do this, we're going to win, we can, especially like 2002, 2006. But now that's just come crashing down. But in Mexico, it's not. In Mexico, there's still that kind of, expectation that the team's going to do something.
Do you sense in Mexico that the fans are they more bullish or bearish on how that they think Mexico is going to fare?
I think this time around, I don't want to contradict myself what I just said there, but maybe a little bit less. And I think the reason is Osorio. He's obviously not popular. He's not making those really brash comments. I mean, if you remember 4 years ago, Miguel Herrera was talking about being the kind of a stone in Brazil's shoe, and that we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and Osorio's not really saying any of that. He's kind of just giving these long explanations of like football stuff.
Very, very long explanations.
Yeah, and then obviously people. I don't know. I don't think it fuels people. But then you turn on the TV and you put Televisa or Azteca on, and it's all about really, really pumping up the World Cup. And I still feel that the Mexico fans think they can really do something. But I mean, we'll see.
You don't see the Mexican fans as being really sort of, maybe it's the older generation that's sort of negative with the whole jugamos como siempre, como nunca, perdimos como siempre attitude. Is like they go and watch the game and everything, but when Mexico loses, or they sort of in their back of their mind expect Mexico to lose or to fail. Do you see that attitude still going on down there?
A bit, yeah, but I mean, I think it's just one of those cultural events, no, that you just have to kind of buy into. And I think people still buy into it with the knowledge, but it's almost, I don't know, it's almost that, I don't know, it's almost like you can't miss it, because just in case this is the 1 year where something, something different happens, and so you want to get kind of emotionally involved with it, but yeah, well, yeah, it's. No, it's definitely interesting. I mean, the interesting thing, living in Mexico for 10 years and, covering football here, and then speaking to people outside the country. I mean, it's fascinating to see not just in the States, because obviously the States have got the rivalry and, they've got a better grip on what Mexican football is. Whereas if you go to Europe, nobody has a clue, to be honest. I mean, they'll name a few players and they'll be like, oh, Mexico, a good team. But that's as far as it goes. They know a few of the players. So So yeah, and then in Mexico, it's obviously these guys are absolute stars. Like the players are absolutely, they won't give interviews. They're in their own little world, and then those same players are like not really known in Europe, to be honest.
Tom, are you saying that La Chofis is not a household name in Manchester?
Not yet, not quite, not quite. But yeah,
you mentioned, Tom, that that you think that for Mexico to be successful or to start having more success rather at the international stage, to have about 50, 60 players playing in Europe. How does Mexico achieve that? With the league that they have, with the way that it's structured, what can Mexico do to get those 50, 60 players playing in Europe?
No, it's difficult. And, I don't necessarily need 50, 60. I think even with the group they've got now, I think you can see the difference in quality. Because I honestly think if Mexico had 4 players, I think like they did in 2006, they were playing in Europe, or I think it was 9 or something in 2010, and then I think about 8, 2014. Or something like that. I can't remember that, but I know Mexico's never had a majority of players in a World Cup squad based in Europe. I think if Mexico had 4 again, then I think they'd be moving behind. You know what I mean? I think they would have gone backwards. I don't have much doubt about that. But then I don't know how you do it. I have no idea how you do it.
Joel, how would Mexico do that, Joel?
Well, wait, just give me like one thing that could help a lot is ending the Pacto de Caballeros and having freedom of contract, because then it allow players to run down the contract and move over to Europe for free.
Well, another way that they could do it, Tom, is something that Joel and I have been advocating. Yes. I was hoping the Joel would jump in there, but
I'm right here, sir.
Well, Joel, please, Joel, Joel, jump in.
Just more players, just having more players playing regularly, because then that just is gonna increase the number of players that go abroad. I mean, if we all, the odds are very low right now because of the number of players that, some teams have up to maybe 3 starters, or in the one thing we've been seeing even recently was, and it's been going on for a while with very, very few Mexican strikers. If you go back a few years, you would have up to 5 Mexicans in the top goal scorers. Now there's maybe like 1 in the top 10.
Yeah.
So, but I know that the league, because the league had a choice to make, the league presidents about, how do we improve the league? And it's by bringing in more and better foreigners. And that's the whole, I could say, the catch-22. Do you improve the league or do you improve the national team? Like,
yeah, that goes to another question.
Go ahead, Chiquis.
Oh, sorry, that goes to another question I had on for Tom. He mentioned, I think, a comment earlier about in England they scout 8-year-olds and the vast amount of professional teams that are over there. Is that something that in Mexico? Because I'm looking at Mexico and I see Pachuca do well bringing up developed players, and Chivas is an all-Mexican team, but they bring in all their Mexicans from other teams instead of bringing them from. What's going on with the youth in Mexico? Is that something that's lacking in their development of strikers, like Joel is talking about, and top players going to Europe?
I think to a degree, but I think at the same time, over the last 15 years, there's been massive improvements. I think definitely improving, but you're only going to see those results if these players get playing time as well. And I think if you look at Chivas, you've seen some of the younger players, Saldivar and then Godinez, who came in at the end with the CONCACAF Champions, like good players, you know what I mean? But the kind of players like Almeida keeps repeating, Godinez is one player right now, and when you give him 50 games under his belt, he's going to be a different player. Look like Roberto Alvarado and Necaxa. He started, I think, at Celaya, went over to Pachuca, but he's got 60 games under his belt, and he's only 19. And you watch him play, and you can completely tell that this is a player who's been a first-team regular. So, I think that's a massive issue. But with the scouting, I mean, Mexico. It depends who you want to compare Mexico to, though. You know what I mean? I think obviously compared to the States, I mean, the Mexican youth systems look great, but then should Mexico be comparing itself to the States? For me, no. it should be comparing itself to other Latin American countries and even in European countries, and the structure that's in place for kind of youth scouting, for developing players, for training players. There aren't enough coaches. There aren't enough coaches that can get kids that are 9, 10, 11, 12 years old and teach them how to play the game. I'm not saying teach them, get rid of that street thing about them and growing up playing on the streets and being, like the typical street footballer, Cuauhtémoc Blanco. I mean, not coaching that out of them, but teaching them systems and awareness. And because I think sometimes when the Mexican players go to Europe, I think that's sometimes those are the things that they lack. And the youth systems have improved in Mexico, but I think there's still a long way to go. I mean, look at the size of the country and 130 million people, and they need to be keeping track of the young players a lot better than they do right now. But having said that, I think there's been massive improvements over the last 15 years. So I think it's a matter of continuing to do that. But yeah, I mean, another one of my theories as well is if you look at how many players Mexico have got right now from Mexico City, and I think you've got a problem there. Because if you look at the under-20 squad, the under-17 squad, the first team squad, you get very few players that are from Mexico City. And then you look at the size of that place. I mean, it's ridiculous. And then you compare it to other countries, the impact that Rio de Janeiro has had on Brazilian football, the impact Paris has had on French football, London and England. And there's no different in Mexico. Montevideo, yeah. Buenos Aires. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is this is a crazy theory, but I honestly think that it's something that needs to be looked at. And you've got a city that size, and you've got 3 clubs. It's just not enough. You know what I mean? It's nowhere near enough. And how many players have Cruz Azul produced over the last 15 years? I mean, when I say produced, like established themselves in the first division. I mean, very, very few. For considering on your doorstep.
Cata Dominguez is the last one. I'm not kidding. It's sad but true.
Yeah, I mean it's America have obviously done better recently. And
but it doesn't be like that, Tom, though, because I mean, when I was a kid, Mexico, there were at least 6, maybe 7 Mexico City sides that used to play in Liga MX. I mean, 2 have left. Atlante left, and Necaxa left.
Yeah.
And obviously there's Toluca. So, I mean, it's it's not particularly it's on the western part of the well, it's in the suburbs now practically. But I like the way you're thinking, Tom. You need more Chilangos playing, not just on the national team, just playing in general. Tom, one question that I had.
Wait, calmao,
Wait.
Te van a dejar acá afuera.
Don't make me break out my bad cop, Joel. I got the bad cop. You
guys are going too fast. No, this is something I talked with Tom before. We talked about how, like, just how you have certain areas that are very influential, like you guys were mentioning, and it's, they've actually done studies on this. Like, I don't know if you guys heard the 80-20 rule, the law of the vital few. So for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. I do feel that it's probably they are missing out because, and even just for Mexico City to just have 3 teams, I think they should have way more. And it kind of says how teams like Atlante and Necaxa weren't able to hold on to their fan base or create more, given the massive size of the city. So I think that even it shows some of the problems, like maybe disconnect with the community as well.
Well, but I mean, even the 3 clubs that are in Mexico City, they are what Tom? Are they like 5 miles apart total? Because they're all in the south. There is nothing in the north. There's nothing in Satélite. There's nothing. I mean, it is all concentrated in the south. Tom, I did have a question about getting players to Europe, and you're asking, where can these players go? There's a league that's just to the north of where Liga MX plays. It's getting ready to expand to 28 teams. They're at 22, 23 teams right now. So they're gonna add 5 more teams, which is about 30. So maybe they're gonna add 150 players over the next 3 or 4 years. or however long it takes, they're going to do that. Okay, the NCAA college draft cannot adequately fill these teams. Joel and I have both been advocates of if Mexico is going to rely more and more on foreigners and more of these young players, like you mentioned, the kid from Necaxa, who even at 19 is the exception to the fact that he has that many professional games at 19.
Yeah,
it seems to me that if does it really matter if Real Madrid signs you, whether you're playing for Chivas or whether you're playing for LA Galaxy?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean, at that age, you need opportunities, and obviously, if you need the best opportunity you can get. So, right now, I think Pachuca is probably the best place in the CONCACAF region to learn to be a player. You know what I mean? It's like American football. No, it's like the college system is the best place in the world you can get to learn how to be an American football player. Whereas
it's subsidized by the taxpayer, which makes it even better.
Yeah, but no, I mean the MLS. I think it's going to have a massive impact on the Mexican game. I think we're seeing it slightly now. I know we've seen it before with Jorge Campos and Suarez, and it's not like this is like first ever. But if I was MLS, I'd be aggressively scouting Mexico's under-20s. To be honest, I'd be sending the scouts down. I'd be going to clubs like Tigres, Monterrey, Toluca, because these teams have decent youth systems, but yet they hardly ever give the chances to the kids. And you take a Mexican kid to LA and you say, look, work hard for a year and you might get in the first team. I don't know. I mean, I think that's going to be appealing. I think the only thing stopping more Mexican players going to MLS right now is the wages. I mean, they can make a lot more money still in Mexico than they can in MLS. But as soon as that changes, I think if you were to ask players, where would you prefer to play, in Mexico or in MLS? I think they'd say MLS. And I think that's that for me is something that Liga MX has to be really, really conscious of at all times if it wants to, maintain the superiority over MLS.
Tom, I would have to add, the mentality of the Mexican players, because I'll say one recent story that we have for reference is Carlos Salcedo, who was in the youth teams, Tigres, Chivas, and then he went to Real Salt Lake because they were going to let him play, instead of just staying in one of these big Mexican teams where he might get a chance down the line, and then it might not come because then another coach might arrive and he could uproot the whole team. But to see him in Europe,
And not only that, Joel, but he signed a contract this week.
To 20, yes. So, I mean, and you mentioned Godinez, which I think is a good talent, but he's 21, compared to South American players. He's 3 years behind. He should have been getting this playing time in these games at 18, or 17, 18, little by little. And just to see the handful of games he has, it's kind of development, it ends up hurting. They don't become as good as it can be. And I think, like, for him, if he would have come to MLS, I felt he would have been better off.
Yeah, maybe, yeah. But then again, MLS aren't exactly great for giving young players a chance.
Well, I think that's
all the
going
time
to change, though. That I mean, at least they're starting to understand a little better that that it might not be such a bad idea to take a chance on a 19-year-old Uruguayan or whatever it is, and there's no reason why Mexico can't be in that conversation.
Yeah,
there was just really quick. There was that talk coming from them that they were trying to change their policy of just going after younger players as opposed to before, where they would just try to bring someone more established or about to retire, and you see it in some of the teams like LAFC has this young Uruguayo, and then Galaxy went after an under 17 Mexican international.
And he's playing on their U.S. And then Atlanta United has a couple of very young and promising players as well. So there's no reason why, like you said, Tom, like even a player like Lachokis, who is now, what is he, like 22, 23? Is he even 24? I know he's pretty old. For a player like that, who in my opinion shows flashes of absolute crazy brilliance, but just doesn't have enough, whatever it is, just enough of the of the mileage on his legs to really kind of get it going. But on the other hand, is he even going to get it going at this point in his career? Because he's already, for a player like that, is have we seen his best days? And it just seems like it's frustrating for Mexico fans to see young players fizzle out like that. And
Yeah.
what Mexico needs is to have a whole bunch of young players, because some of them are going to fizzle out, but some are not. And Mexico just doesn't get that. So they always put so much pressure on these young kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's a matter of, it's almost like you put some raw material into a machine and then you press the button and a certain amount comes out the other end. You know what I mean? It's like, and I think that's how producing players works. Obviously, you want the stuff that you put in to be really good, so that means you need good scouting. That means you need to go all over the country. You need good coaches, and then what comes out, a lot of it, the amount that comes out depends on the amount that you put in. And Mexico at the minute, it's being reduced because you're not, like Jolie said before, it's like, how are you going to export a Mexican striker to Europe when there are no Mexican strikers playing and none under 25? You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen. And so it's kind of almost an existential problem that Mexican football has. I mean, I think the solution, I don't know how you create this, is to, going back to the England link, Jamie Vardy, how he was playing in, I think, the 4th division, 5th division. He wasn't even a pro; he was a semi-pro. But he wasn't picked up by the big clubs. He went down the divisions, shows something, then starts working his way back in, and all of a sudden he's at the World Cup, which is, imagine how many Mexican players fit that bill. You know what I mean? But instead of playing in the kind of 4th, 5th division, just completely gave up, because obviously in Mexico they were just, even the 2nd division, there's some good talent, but it's a bit of a joke. It is a bit of a joke right now. It's nowhere near what it should be. And then you go to the 3rd division and the 4th division, and they're basically fuerzas básicas again. I don't know how you create that kind of ecosystem, in Mexico to create that kind of safety blanket, really, for players that don't immediately make it. And give them a different division, competitive football, that they can work their way back up. Because at the minute, I think players dropping down to the 2nd division, there are very, very few examples in Mexico of players dropping to the 2nd division and then kind of going back. And I'm not saying there are no examples, but it doesn't happen very often.
I can give you a future example, Tom.
Go on.
El Julit Peña.
We have right now.
Drop and bounce back. His drop and bounce back.
We do
He's
have
going to get his life together.
Angel Reina in Toluca right now.
Yeah. Rain, for me, I don't know. but yeah, Chofis, I don't think he'd do well in MLS, to be honest. I just think physically is, I don't know. I think MLS, the basic thing with MLS is that a Mexican player's value is higher than a Mexican player's value in Europe. So, and players basically go, not just Mexican players, pretty much all players go to where they're worth more, who's going to pay them more. It's just like most people, no? And obviously, if there's not a big difference, then they might want to go to Europe. But if there's then a big difference, I think the vast majority of players are gonna go for the money. And aside from Chofis, I'd mention Pizarro. If I was MLS right now, I'd be looking into Pizarro, to be honest. Good age, 24 years old. He can play the better part of his career. He's pretty much guaranteed to be a success because he's going to a weaker league, and he's already been a success in Liga MX. So I think that's another fundamental problem potentially that Mexican football has. But let me throw a question at you guys, considering that. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but in that case, if you agree with that, should Mexico fans support MLS and be like, we want MLS to become, one of the top 5 leagues in the world, because we know that Mexican players are going to play there, and so we want them to play the most competitive football they can. So therefore, it makes sense to kind of go all in on MLS.
You're asking a group that discusses this. Well, at least some of us discuss this on a pretty regular basis.
I say no, though.
Well, I know you say no, Chiquis. But I don't know. I can't speak for Joel, but I say absolutely because I mean, how cool would it be, Tom, to have the CONCACAF Champions League be as big as the Libertadores or as the Champions League in Europe? That to have like a Vancouver Pachuca game just be massive, and be on primetime stuff. So I think it would if MLS becomes a top 5 league, that can only help Liga MX as long as they play it right. As long as they play it right.
Also, I wanna add something else. I don't know how you say it in English, but sembrar raíces. So you see some of these leagues like in Italy and Spain when they were starting, and you had Argentines and Brazilians going over there since like the 50s and 60s, and they were establishing themselves. So it's very common now to see like Argentine coaches or all the players that come from those leagues. They became rentables. They became very established, known commodities. So, and that's one thing I've talked with John about. Why not do that with the league here, where we're going to send players where it becomes a good thing to have a Mexican player? That maybe 10, 20 years down the line, fans are excited to know that they're getting some top prospect from Liga MX or something like that.
See, and to counter that, there's no reason why Liga MX wouldn't go after American players for the same reason.
Yeah, but yeah, no, there's no reason, but I just don't think they've got the vision. I think that's the problem with Liga MX. They don't. I don't know. I can't explain it because they do want this league that's bigger, and you can see certain decisions that Liga MX have done that you can see kind of where it's going in a way. But then they do other things, and you're like, "What? That's backwards." Like the relegation stuff. Like that's
Sure.
a backward step. Like I don't know, and it's sometimes it's not even a matter of substance. It's about selling it. And I think MLS is very good at selling its products. I think North American sports are good at selling their product. No, I mean the NFL and stuff like that. You look at how they've made inroads over in different places in the world where nobody really, when I was growing up, I didn't understand anything about NFL. But now you go back to England and people kind of like talk about it, and I'm like, what's going on? But you know what I mean. The Liga MX needs to get its stuff together really, and it's difficult though. I mean the model of Liga MX with all the owners, and you've got so many opinions going into meeting that. And I think that's then you see the results of the meeting. And it's kind of like a hodgepodge, like a mixed bag, completely coming from different angles. You know what I mean? It's not like this is well thought through. This is our mission. This is the next step on the road to get to point B, which is being one of the best leagues in the world. It's kind of like they want to be one of the best leagues in the world, but they don't really know how to get there, and they can't even make the first few steps. I don't know. Does that make sense? They change the rules every year.
It seems like they know how to make the steps. They just don't know how to put it all together, or like I said, to have the vision to execute it. Like take for instance, Tom, the rule about the 20,000 seat stadium. You know what? I think that's actually a pretty decent rule because then what you do is you get people to build stadiums that are going to be compliant with Liga MX. Well, but if they were going to do that, then announce this rule. Say, hey, in 5 years, don't announce it at the beginning of the season, because then you have stadiums like Oaxaca and Tapachula that built brand new stadiums. They both did, but they're like 18,000 seats, or whatever it is. So if they're going to make these decisions, then give people time to prepare in order for that to happen. Because I think it would be great to that seems like a pretty good requirement, because then you'll have. If people are very interested or serious about becoming a first division club, they understand that they have to make that investment to do that. So then you'll have, say, 15 or 20 teams in the Liga Ascenso that have 20,000 seat stadiums that are making the investments necessary if they want to make that jump into the first division. So that then again, it gives the opportunity for more players to play and more players to play competitively. But now there's how many teams are in Liga Ascenso? Is it there's like 10?
I think it's 15 or 15? Something now.
I mean,
it changes every year. I mean, that's one of those things. It's like, but then, John, honestly, I'm not saying like this is what I think now, but I kind of thinking about it more. If it's based on who's got the investment, why not just sell the teams off I mean, what's the point in maintaining this farce of promotion and relegation when it don't really exist anyways? You know what I mean? Let's not lie. It's like, what's the point in it? I mean, me covering, after what happened with Querétaro and Chiapas and Veracruz and all that a few years ago, I'm just like, what is the point in covering relegation? I mean, the team gets relegated, and then it's like a lot of things in Mexico. You get a no, and then that's really the start of it, the process of that becoming a yes. You know what I mean? You get relegated, and then you start negotiating to see if you can stay in. I mean, I don't know.
Well, at least in this case, Tom, they did the negotiations at the beginning of the season, so that they wouldn't have to do it in secret at the end.
But it just made no sense either, because they wanted to get the league to 20, but there was always going to be a percentage chance that, and they wanted it by 2020, that there was going to be 20 teams in what, 2-3 years, if I'm not mistaken. But then you're relying on the teams that you want to get promoted, that fulfill all these requirements, getting promoted. You know what I mean?
Right. So do you believe that Mexico doesn't have enough? I'm saying Mexico as a country have enough interest in different regions and different states in Mexico to warrant having the two divisions. So you might as well just have a 24-team quote unquote Premier League and not have promotion relegation.
No, I think you need. I think you need promotion and relegation. I think there is a massive problem in getting people to invest in clubs. I mean, there are, obviously the massive investments. I'd throw an idea out there. Why not have, the two divisions and then close it from there, if you know what I mean? So you've got two divisions and everybody fights it out between themselves, but there's real promotion then. You know what I mean? So if Chivas go down, as long as they spend the money and they do the right things, then they can go back up on the field. Because at the minute, is in the way that the system's set up, it's so difficult to get promoted. If I'm an investor, I know Atletico Madrid have invested in San Luis and all that, but if I'm an investor, I'm just thinking, forget it. Like, what's the point? I could be here for like 5 years, a bit like Leon, before they got promoted, like being a really, really good team, but like just never winning promotion. And then it's like, well, do I want to spend all that money for all that time and not get a place in the big league? Whereas I think if you had two divisions, at least and I think there's plenty of towns in Mexico that could kind of get that.
The carrot of the first division also has to be a little bit more desirable as well. And the reality is that there just is no carrot. I mean, what I mean is like a financial carrot in order to justify that investment. I mean, there is some, but in Liga MX, they don't aggregate their TV contracts. So poor Lobos WAP has to come up to first division and then, pay, get paid peanuts so that their games air on television, as opposed to, in other countries, hey, you're coming in, here's your portion of this gigantic television contract that we've signed that we have all these teams as a part of. And that hurts too. So you're right. So you're right. Well, why would somebody come in and invest in something like you said that it's so hard to get into in the first place? And then there's no other than the prestige of playing in the first division.
Yeah, I mean,
what else is there? There has to be a much more desirable carrot for that investment to happen.
No, yeah, I agree. I think for the TV contract, I think Spain's the definite example where it is proportionate. You know what I mean? So the bigger clubs are getting the bigger slice of the pie, but the lower clubs are still like kind of at least getting that buffer, because
somewhat remain solvent, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. And but I mean, the other issue here is that what you're saying there, John, is like who's it attracted to? Who's it attractive to right now? Liga MX and stuff like, and even Ascenso MX, and it's state governments.
Sure.
And I think this is one of the big issues. This is one of the things that I don't even know if they've publicly said it, the Liga MX. I think they have actually. But this is one of the things they want to get rid of, because we saw with Chiapas, basically there was big state influence, rumors of all sorts of things,
It happens at Club de Cuervos too.
Exactly. No, it's that kind of thing. And okay, if people are listening now, type in who's the Presidente de Tapachula. Just type in his name and then type it in a separate Google tab, and just investigate a little bit about who he is, about what he does. And I'm not saying he's a bad guy or anything. And Tapachula done absolutely brilliantly to win that tournament. I saw him live here against Leones Negros, and Caballero has you could tell they're a really well coached side. But then you look at the president of that club, and then you're thinking, Manuel Velasco, the Chiapas state governor, El Güero, he was there at the game in Tapachula. He's wearing his shirt. He's celebrating in the dressing room after they won in Oaxaca. And I don't know. I mean, it looks very much like there is quite a lot of influence from the state government.
Well, I'm sure that they were expecting them to move their team back to Chiapas. I'm sure that was exactly what the expectation was, regardless of what the rule stipulation said.
Quite possibly, or increase the stadium. I don't know. Yeah, but I mean, the point is, Liga MX really doesn't want that team to be promoted. You know what I mean? Because obviously, with Mexican politics as well, after the revolution, there's only 6-year terms, and there's no re-election. And so, what these guys do is they invest quite heavily originally, and after 6 years, they're gone. And then the next state government's like, all right, how much were you paying for that team? And they're like, oh, we're paying this much. And they're like, oh, well, no, we're not going to pay that. We're going to use this for something else. It becomes kind of a, like look at Veracruz right now with Fidel Curry. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to suggest something ridiculous, but as that club has, I think it's fair to say that club has given him a national profile,
to say the least. And he's also
that guy's a politician. I mean, at the end, the guy's a politician.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely so. So what can we do, Tom? Does Tom Marshall need to found? Does Tom Marshall need to found Club Inglés de Guadalajara?
No, it goes back to what I was saying about forget the, if you want to get the 20 teams in there, then auction it off. I mean, I don't see how another way they're going to do it. I'm not saying I agree with that. I'd love 3 divisions of a club coming from the 3rd division with a really young team and getting promoted, and then winning the promotion to the 1st division and really fighting. But it's not happening. I mean, even when clubs get look at even Lobos Buap. I mean, under Puente. Look at the team that they won the title with, and then the team that played that first game. Look at Dorados, Sinaloa. I think they had a few more players, Dorados, but Leones Negros. But the 2nd division teams, even when they do get promoted, they just completely change the team. It's just I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what you do.
I would wager to think that Leones Negros has to be the 2nd most popular team in Guadalajara.
You're behind.
I mean, and if they made the 1st division, so it auctioned off like a franchise fee, then you get the folks that are really, really serious about doing that, and I think of, I think Atlante, not necessarily, well, one because of their history and tradition, but Cancun to me is just a slam dunk place to have a 1st division Liga MX team, and they need to put a stadium in the zona hotelera.
I 100% agree with that. I think I've definitely thought that before. And it doesn't have to be a big stadium, 20,000 stadium. It's not a massive town. I mean, the players would absolutely love playing there, so I think that'd be an attraction. But for me, if there's 2 clubs, you've got Juarez, who just got a lot of money. Again, if you look who the owners are, there's big money behind that club, and they're absolutely desperate to get promoted. And then you look at Atletico Madrid and what they've done with San Luis, and you've got 2 teams there who pretty much guaranteed they're going to add to the league. Lobos Buap at the end of the day, I loved them on the field, but in terms of what they give to the league off the field, then it's very little. And again, I'm not saying that should be the important thing. Of course, it shouldn't. But yeah, it's a difficult dilemma. I think it's something that Liga MX has to balance out. But again, it goes back to when the club owners are making these decisions, and there's friction and between them and divide, and then it's very difficult to come out to a conclusion which is very kind of clearly thought through, because you've got all these different opinions coming in, and it's difficult. And some people don't really care. Some of the owners. I mean, does Veracruz's owner really care about the future of the league? Whereas does Santos Lagunas? And I'd argue that Santos is really keen. for this league to grow, you know what I mean, and very aware of what's going on outside of Mexico, and what goes on in MLS and in other different European countries, and just really on the pulse of the world game. And then you've got other ones who I think use the clubs for for other things and stuff. So it's difficult to get such disparate viewpoints and types of people, to get them on the same page and to do things in the right way is complicated.
Man, now there it is. I found it. I can never find it, but I found my crickets. Well, Tom, I mean, you bring up stuff that actually we do talk about a lot here on the CantinaMX podcast. So it's very interesting that in your years, in the 10 years that you've been in Mexico, that you've seen this. Now, do you think, Tom, that is 20 the limit for the if you were okay, but rephrase it, if you're the Liga MX commission, how big a league would you want to have, and what would you do with promotion relegation?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a really difficult one because it depends on. I mean, Mexico as a country can hold many more clubs than first division clubs than 20. And the ideal thing is you have relegation and promotion, and you have at least 2 really strong leagues full of teams that could potentially be in the first division. I don't know how you get there though, and I don't even think the people in charge know how they get there. So yeah, I don't know. But if you keep the current system as well with the playoffs and the 2 seasons a year, then you're struggling with more than 20 teams. Because even with 20 teams, I think Tuca Ferretti was saying the other day, it's like, when are we going to play? We've already got the Copa MX, we've got the CONCACAF Champions League. When are we going to find time to play these extra 2 rounds of league matches? So yeah, it's a difficult one with that, but I don't know. I mean, you gotta get attracting the owners. You gotta, like you said with the TV thing, I think that'd be a massive boost if they could when they come together.
Well, you're the commissioner, so you have got you put the owners in line. You're the one that lays down the law. So what do you tell them? What do you tell
them? Just join with MLS.
merge with MLS.
Just merge. Gets rid of the headache.
That is another thing that we've kicked around here on the podcast is instead of playing Copa MX, why not do just a straight up one-off tournament with MLS and just play it? Play the bracket, however it falls. Home or away, whatever it is, just play it.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you can make a case for merging the leagues. Honestly, I think if you for a number of reasons, obviously, I'm not saying this is what should happen or anything, but then obviously there's reasons against it as well. But you can imagine, right now, how many really, really good clubs would you say Mexico has? Like good
clubs from like the people that throw out the trash all the way to the very top, like just up and up and down.
Well-run clubs that you like, I think, good institutions, good stadiums, like do things the right way.
Yeah, it's like 5. I put it at 5.
I think 5 or 6. I mean, I think that's some have the potential to be better, and then some have fallen off.
Well, yeah, Toluca, Santos, I think they've both been doing really well. Just the way they've been managing their club and even their stadiums.
I say Toluca, Santos, Pachuca, America.
Yeah, those are 2 Monterrey teams,
And Cruz Azul now because they have Ricardo Peláez. So I'm just a huge fan of. A huge fan of. I will say that when with Ricardo Peláez, we'll never have to use this ever again.
I'm afraid I just blew myself.
Well, we'll be able to retire that one.
Aren't they building a stadium?
Well, they're supposed to build and again in the south, just shockingly, in the where the Grand Prix is, the Grand Prix track, the Michuca, is where the stadium is supposed to go. And again, that's in the south. So once again, they had an opportunity to do something in the northern part of the city, and there's just absolutely nothing there. The last player that I can think of from Mexico City that had any kind of impact on anything is Pablo Barrera, and he was from Satélite.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's
Well, Tom, before I know we've had you on for an hour, we don't want to keep you too long, but before we let you go, we do have to ask you on the head and the heart there for England, Tom. Where do you see England finishing? Are they gonna lift the trophy?
no.
Oh.
I don't think no. I think England are probably quarterfinals. I think this is one tournament too early for them. But I think if you look at players like even Dele Alli, I mean, 22 years old now, he's achieved so much at Tottenham. He's a bit inconsistent, but potentially this is the top player, like elite, fighting with the world's best. I think
Right.
Kane's the one he's absolutely proved it. You know what I mean? I think Sterling's got a little bit. I think Rashford's still got a way to go. But if those players develop like you expect them to, and at the next World Cup they're all coming in the prime, and you've got the next generation doing what Sterling and Ali are doing right now, then I think you're going to have a really, really good team.
What English player has the best chance to be signed by Real Madrid if they have a good World Cup?
I think Dele Alli.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Harry Kane's very, very committed to Tottenham. Dele Alli, probably. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. He's probably too young for him now, to be honest. But yeah, I'd say Ali. Sterling's already at City making loads of money, so obviously that's very unlikely. So yeah, I'd say him. I'd say Ali.
So it's quarterfinal finish for you. So the chances are pretty high that if they make the quarterfinals, they're either going to face Brazil or they're going to face Germany, because that's who's on that side. It's going to be one or the other. So
Yeah,
it depending if they finish first or second, it's not going to matter. They're going to play either Brazil or Germany in the quarterfinal. So quarterfinal exit prediction for Tom, and of course your heart says they're going to lift the trophy. They're going to just like they do on your PlayStation.
Honestly, I don't know. I've never been a massive England fan, to be honest. It's
really?
A bit weird.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. But
country.
So you've been able to give us a very almost like an unbiased.
It's not.
Which was was what we were looking for. So.
But no, yes, I don't know. I think sometimes people from like cities like Manchester, Liverpool, I don't know, especially like Liverpool fans or like Man United fans. I don't know, there's certain clubs in England where the fan bases aren't, they're kind of almost anti-England, and it's like it's I mean it's something you definitely don't see in Mexico, but you definitely get that feeling in England with certain clubs.
That's interesting. I did not realize that was such a prevalent.
Yeah, I mean,
sentiment.
there was a period when Heinze used to play for Man United where the United fans would chant at him, "Argentina, Argentina." They like supported Argentina against England, which is absolutely amazing, no? But I mean, it's kind of almost regionalism and stuff. It's and also with United, you had Beckham got sent off against Argentina, and then everybody in England hated him for quite a while. Phil Neville as well got a lot of criticism with England, and then you had a player like Scholes who used to go to England and just be played out of position and stuff, and never really, I don't know, just he should have been the central hub of England's midfield for 10 years easily, and it just didn't happen. Things like that feed into it, I think.
Just like my prediction that Chaton was going to be the midfield general for 10 years after the Olympics.
Oh man!
I mean, I tell you what. With this World Cup, if Chaton would have developed like we thought he was going to be,
he'd be the captain.
He'd be that holding midfielder that Osorio is absolutely desperate for. Just absolutely desperate for.
He meets the height requirement.
He meets the height requirement. He plays the defensive part of the defensive holding midfielder very well. Yeah, it was he and then that Olympic run when he came on in the second half, Chaton, that team changed completely. He was the difference maker in that. It's very sad, Tom. It's very sad. All right, Tom. So we
wait, uno más.
All right. No, I was going to ask about Mexico, but go ahead. Go ahead.
It's not every day we get Mr. Marshall here. Was this final question, or you have? I was going to ask about the Liga MX final.
Oh, the final.
Favorito, Angels versus Saints versus Devils.
Saints versus
yeah.
No, it's know. It's a weird final, no? I don't know. It's kind of there's something a bit. It doesn't feel like there's a final
It's
tomorrow.
funny you say it's weird. One of our panelists, he's not here right now, Ron. He said they don't know their places in the league. Toluca.
Yeah. No, it's like
You would have no idea what team he supports with a comment like that. Just would never know. Would never guess it. Would never guess it.
It really shouldn't be a surprise that Toluca in the final, given the regular season, and But then it's like, I don't know, it kind of is a bit surprising at the same time. Just thought they'd kind of be one of those, regular season leaders who play one of the bigger clubs and then kind of
fizzle out.
Just fizzled out and just has a bad game. And I think you have to give Santos Laguna a lot of credit for what they've done. I think they knocked out Tigres, which for me is still the best team in Mexico, and then they knocked out Club America as well.
You know what they call that? They call that the Toronto two-step, because that's exactly what Toronto FC did in the Conca Champions. They knocked out Tigres and then America to make the final.
Yeah, I mean, I think Santos have really got it together in the playoffs. They weren't doing very well at the end of the regular season, and suddenly they've clicked again. But Toluca finishing out at home, it's always going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult for Santos, and we'll see. It's going to be. I don't think there's much between the two teams. You look at Toluca, and in terms of young Mexican players as well. I mean, I've always said, I know Toluca fans, there's a couple on Twitter that don't like it, but they don't excite me. This team doesn't excite me. I'm not saying by that it's a bad team. I think if there's one word to describe kind of Toluca, it's balanced. And if you look at all the stats, there's nothing that kind of jumps out and says, oh, this is what they're good at. You know what I mean? They're just very good at everything. They've got the two older midfielders. They've got Sambuesa, who's just, for me, just unbelievable at finding space. I mean, if there's space to be exploited, he'll be there. And then Barrientos there behind the striker Uribe, and top playmaker. So they're a good team. They're a good team and very, very well balanced and good. I know it sounds obvious, but decent in defence and obviously okay going forward as well. So I mean, they're a good team. But if I'm going to be jumping up and down off my seat watching Toluca play, I don't think so. You know what I mean? Again, going back to the issue of the Mexican players. I mean, Leo Lopez, he doesn't even belong to Pachuca. I mean, that's the only. I mean, that doesn't even belong to Toluca. Sorry. He's still a León player. So I don't know. That's something that I always like to look at. With these teams, you know what I mean. And then you look at Santos Laguna and you think about Angulo, who for me has been absolutely brilliant.
I was gonna say in the I guess it was the quarterfinals against Tigres, he was outstanding. And then he was outstanding in that first game in Torreón against America. So he's what, 19 years old, Tom? Is that right, Angulo?
Yeah, he's an exciting player. And then Santos is a club to really look out for in terms of the youth development, because they're generally doing good things, and I don't think they're shouting it from the rooftops. And again, I don't necessarily think that clubs that are like and Santos do boast about winning the under 20s and the 17s and reaching the finals. And obviously it's like the under 17 World Cup. It's a good indicator that you're doing things well. But at the end of the day, the goal of a youth team is to get players into your first team. I mean, and I think Santos for the next few years are going to do that. You see Angulo, I think Abella's like the example right now.
And what about Isihara? Because he's one of the young players as well, is he not?
Isihara, no. I've got a funny story about Isihara actually. I was at Santos a couple of weeks ago and I interviewed Villafaña, and then Villafaña left, and then Isihara came past. I didn't recognize him by his face, and the press guy from Santos was like, "Oh, this is one of our under 20s." So I started asking about the under 20s. I was like, "Oh, so looking forward to the Liguilla. Who are the best teams in the under 20s?" And he was like, "Yeah, like Atlas and America." And then they just all burst out laughing. And then I was like, oh, it's Isihara, and he's 28 years old.
Oh, he's 20. I thought he was younger than that.
Me too. He looks younger. I thought he was definitely younger, but he's 28. So he's been around a bit. But anyways, yeah.
Well, Tom, I know that you're going to be covering Mexico in the upcoming World Cup, but do you what is your sense of or how would you consider this World Cup a success for Mexico?
Mexico, I mean, I think quarterfinals is a success. I think if Mexico get out of the group and lose against one of the top teams in the round of 16, I mean, I don't know, are people really going to be upset at that? Probably, but I mean, it's not. It makes no sense to be upset by that, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
When you take a step back and look at this Mexican team, you know, I really, really like this Mexico team. I like the way it plays football. And I'm not saying, 4 years ago they didn't. I also like that team, but and I think you got to enjoy the World Cup. That's my goal anyway. I think anybody supporting Mexico or following Mexico, Mexico got a team that plays nice football, that attacks the opposition, that is going to attack Germany. I don't know. Maybe I'm a bit of an idealist in that regard, or a bit of a I don't know. I can't remember the word now, but I like that. I place like worth in playing that way rather than going around covering a team that kind of sit back and are hoping for a counter attack or a set piece all the time. I mean, I don't know. I like the kind of football that Mexico play. So I'm quietly optimistic. I think the group is very, very good. I don't think Mexico have the individual players that other teams have. Even say an Egypt with Salah. A Portugal obviously with Ronaldo, or who else? Even Korea with Son. I mean, I don't think Mexico has a Son, a player at that level. But yeah, I mean, let's hope that Lozano steps up, because I think it is another step up for him. And a couple of times when he stepped up in his career, he struggled at first. Thinking, in the Olympics, I don't know what happened there with him, and then when he played against Chile, I mean, I think he looked out of place at that point, and hopefully now with that season with PSV behind him, that he takes this opportunity with both hands, because he's a player who could move to a big club. So I think that's what Mexico need to be looking for. Someone like Lozano to really step up, and then the collective to do its job, because. Mexico's a team very, very capable of having a good World Cup, I think.
Anybody else have any questions for Tom before we cut him loose? Chiquis, Joel, going once.
Not I. Thank you very much, though.
Well,
No.
Tom, again, thank you so much for joining us. We don't want to blot everyone else. We took up so much of your time, but we do appreciate you coming on and chatting about England, about Liga MX, and about Mexico with us. We do appreciate it. When are you off?
It's pretty much. I think I'm going to. I'm going to Denmark first. So yeah, I mean, basically, it's all starting now. You know what I mean?
Sure.
The Liga MX final this weekend. I'm going to be at Toluca. I'm not going to the first leg. And then, you got the LA game, and then it's back to Guadalajara for a couple of days, and then to Mexico City, back to Guadalajara for a couple of days, then Denmark, and then it's all on. Then it's all go.
And you're just going to catch that Guadalajara Copenhagen nonstop, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
The 3 flights a day on Aero Mexico.
yeah, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be an amazing flight, that one. But anyway, all right, boys. Well, thanks a lot.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us, Tom. Have a safe travels in Russia and enjoy yourself. And we will be following your coverage from the World Cup. So thank you for joining us.
No, thanks a lot for the invite. Speak soon. Bye, boy.
Hey.
Cheers.
Tom Marshall joining us from ESPN FC, giving us a lot of insight on England. I'm very bullish on England. I think that they have a real good chance to pull the upset in the quarterfinals. I think. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I do think that they have a really good chance to get a result and be one of those surprise semifinalists that we occasionally see in the World Cup. But we'll talk about our predictions when the time does come. But I do notice when I was hoping that that he would come on, and he has come on. So we have to introduce Dan the only way we can after taking down Club America. Daniel Preciado joins us from Escondido. Dan, how sweet must that have been for you as a Santos fan, knowing that is it your dad or your father-in-law that is the cremoso in your family? Oh, did we lose Dan? Hopefully Dan will be back on here.
Wait, can you guys not hear me?
Oh, there you were, Dan. There we are.
My bad. Yes, it's my dad who's the azul crema. We have not spoken of the match though, so.
You mean on purpose or
yeah,
just
no,
you just haven't
we
spoken?
spoke the other day, and I made it a point not to bring it up because he is offering me to help me out with some DIY stuff, so I didn't want to mess that up. So I just got.
So it
was all business.
You'll drop the bomb when the last screw has turned.
Yeah, it is premature to celebrate. So like, I'm not one to celebrate getting to a final. I mean, it's an accomplishment. It's fun. It feels good, but it's not over yet. So can't celebrate yet. But man, I don't recall being so emotional over on watching a match in a long time. I mean, I couldn't help but the 4-letter words were just flowing with when that first penalty, and just the overall officiating I thought was really poor. I think he kind of, I don't know if it was like a conscious thing, but it seemed like the calls started going in Santos' way in the following half, unfairly also. So yeah, I thought it was a terribly officiated game. I thought the referee had way too much of an influence way too soon, but it sure as hell made it interesting. I thought it sucked you in, but I think the way Santos was able to respond with that goal right before the second half, I think that was like the nail. I think it completely took the momentum away.
Did you
second half was actually kind of boring, I thought, mostly.
Did you sweat through your shirt in those first 20 minutes?
Yes.
Yeah.
But I knew I would. I'd never imagined. I never remotely thought that this was going to be a stress-free game. Because it never is. Even with that 6-0 that they laid, or whatever it was, they made it interesting in that return leg. So I felt that it's Liga MX. A 3-0 is not safe.
Right. Well, we're glad to have you on, Dan, and we just had Tom Marshall come on, and
yeah, I'm obviously on the road, but I wanted to tune in and discuss a little bit of footy.
And Tom, cautiously optimistic about Mexico. Didn't want to, we didn't want to put him on the spot as far as making any kind of prediction, but he does seem to think that Mexico has at least some of a modicum of a chance for success in the tournament, and also hedging a little bit in the sense that not Tom himself, but saying that hey, chances if Mexico does make it through the next round, they're going to play a really good team. That middle part of the bracket that we're talking about, where they're the super giants, the teams you want to avoid if you're not a super giant, and as such, Mexico is going to have to deal with that in the round of 16 in all likelihood, and they'll take their chances as they come. We have a final coming up. Santos is playing Toluca. First leg is tomorrow night. I believe it's at 8 o'clock Central, 9 Eastern, and 6 on the West Coast in Torreon again. So it'll be a good sizzling temperature for Santos, at least to have a little bit of their late afternoon home field advantage that they seem to do so well with, and hopefully they'll be able to take advantage of that, get a comfortable advantage to head down to Toluca, where we have seen and we saw Tijuana have to deal with it.
This is where the training in the sand dunes comes in handy.
Oh yeah,
all that pain felt in the preseason.
That's why they lift all them weights.
Unforgiving sand dunes. This is where it pays off.
The sand dunes of Torreon in the comarca.
Yeah, and outside. I believe they were probably in Chihuahua, but technically, but I'm not quite sure. But
Yeah, is that where they do their preseason? They go to the high desert and run on the sand dunes?
I have seen the videos. Yes, it looks miserable, to be honest with you.
Are they good like slow motion videos where they're really grinding and the sand is flying everywhere and you see the sweat just just glisten off their bodies as they're really working hard? You're thinking, man, this is a championship caliber team because this shot is so good.
Dunes looked really steep.
Yeah.
It's like for all that effort, you're moving like 2 inches up at a time. So it's yeah, no, it looked awful. I'm like, man, of course, they're paying you. There's no way you can get me out there.
Dan, we did ask Tom earlier, who was from the Manchester area, if belligerent ghouls ran Manchester schools, and he said yes, they do.
Wait, one more time.
I said that we'd asked Tom if belligerent ghouls run Manchester schools, and
did he catch the reference?
Oh, of course he did.
I didn't know. I can't assume everybody from Manchester is going to be a
Actually, that was a tip off from Joel, who
really
who gave me that. But the problem though is we can't play that stuff because I put like little drops and stuff, but they got that crazy software that we've been busted a few times.
They catch you, yeah.
Videos and audio, so we would try.
I'll send him an email and ask him. This is like, because I know he's very Mexico friendly. It's like, hey man, we're just promoting your brand, dude.
That's right.
Free.
That's right.
So I'll talk to him and see what we can get done, because I think he owns the rights to his own music at this point.
Oh, really?
He may, yeah.
Oh, well, if he owns his own rights, then okay. I think you should.
Might be more forgiving, right?
One would expect. The bad thing is that I screwed up the second line because it's a song I've known for 30 years, and I spaced it. I got nervous.
No, confession. I'm terrible with lyrics. I have probably been singing along to this and probably inserting incorrect lyrics for the better part of like 30 years, probably.
True story, Dan. True story. And I think I've said this on the show before. Up until like maybe my early 20s, when a person got a yellow card, it's amonestado with an N. I thought for most of my young life that it was amolestado with an L. Amolestado, like it was, and it made sense.
Molested.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was molested. He's been bothered. He was bothered. Like I wasn't translating into like a pervy vibe.
Right. Yeah. Because me estás molestando. Me estás molestando. Yeah. Being bothered.
Yeah. It makes sense. Yeah.
So yeah, for years, up until I think I saw it on a graphic on television, I was like, oh, I had no idea. So yeah, so I can certainly understand how you, anybody that sings lyrics, gets the words wrong. Joel, do you have a particular song that you sing the words wrong to on purpose?
No, not on purpose.
No.
There's probably a few where I got it wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say this: my wife is a big Bon Jovi fan, and congratulations to Bon Jovi for making the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But there's a couple of songs that she likes that I kind of changed the lyrics to the song as I was singing it. It made it a little, let's just say, a little blue, and she was not appreciative of my attempts at humor. I thought it was hilarious, but if those songs come on, I just look at you. She goes, "Don't you effing dare!" It's pretty funny. So yeah, there is. I was hoping that she would come on tonight. I had this elaborate thing set up. We were going to ask her questions to see, which team had a more painful exit, and if she would have guessed England, she would have done this. And if she would have chose Mexico, if that was the one, we would have played this. It would have been perfect. It would have been perfect. But unfortunately, she just started a new gig, and she's like, I can only be just a little trash. So just in honor of the trash talking Juanita, we will let her have one of these.
Club America, they suck.
So even though she's not with us, she's still talking trash.
She's with us in spirit, John.
Yeah, she is. See, and you know, and then Tom was talking about the book, 50 Years of Pain. So I mean, just
Oh man,
the whole setup would have been perfect, and we you know we would have asked her question. It would have been, but unfortunately, it didn't work out. So it's just an opportunity for good podcast fun there. You know, that'd have been one of those things where we would have like broken it off and like posted it separately. I think it would have worked really well.
Bueno, chavos, hate to be the bearer of bad news, but
¿Ya te vas, Joel?
ya me están regañando.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you know what you can
happened?
do. You know what you can do to get back, Joel, is
Get
like
back.
one of the songs that comes on that she likes. Change the lyrics.
Change the lyrics.
Change the lyrics.
I'll keep that in mind, John.
Joel, before you go, we're not going to
Yes.
talk again until maybe after the final. So who you got?
That is true, man. Such a tough one, man.
It's even, Steven. It's going to go to penales, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at the crystal ball, John, and it's a tough call. I can't. I can't. I will have to meditate on that.
Well, hang on a second.
Go to the desert, take some peyote. See.
Hang on a second, Joel. Hang on.
Yeah.
I might be able to help you out here. Of course, I'll be able to help you out in 15 seconds. So hang on here. But you're looking at your crystal ball.
Yeah.
And it's very cloudy. Is that right? It's very cloudy. You need to.
It's very cloudy, man.
Yeah. Very cloudy. What do you see, Joel? What do you see?
No, it's still the same, man.
So you can't make a judgment one way or the other.
No, this will put me to sleep, John.
Yeah.
I'm feeling comfortable.
So do we need to jolt you awake, Joel? Do we need to jolt you awake, right?
No, they both teams have their. Esta se me olvidó. No, han hecho sus méritos. They're both capable enough. I just don't see one where sometimes you have a clear favorite. I don't really have one.
Okay. Well then, Joel, since you so your final assessment is you have no idea.
It's a coin toss. It's a coin toss, man.
Could go either way.
Yeah.
It's a pick'em.
Yeah.
It's a pick'em for Joel. All right. Well, then you know what, Joel? Then you can't be wrong unless if like somebody wins 5-0, in the first leg.
Yeah, man. That's yeah.
Well, all right then. Well, we will let you we'll let you snap off then.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us as always.
Hasta la próxima.
And we'll talk to you later on down the road.
Later.
So Joel undecided. Chiquis.
Yeah, I got Toluca taking it.
Yeah, you are gonna eat some chorizo.
Yeah.
All right. Any particular reason? Just because they're playing the second leg at home, or?
Yeah, that's part of it, and then I think their defense is solid, and they got the Sambuesa, Uribe. They got enough people on offense to pull it off. I think on the return leg, they won't concede that many goals like America did, which America looked pretty bad defensively. So.
Yeah, but Santos also won't be giving up that many goals like Tijuana did either. So, and don't forget, Tijuana was, even with the hat trick, Tijuana was still one goal away from making that much more interesting for Toluca than it had to be. So, Toluca can be they can be had. I don't think they're an overwhelming favorite at all, like Joel says. But in your mind, though, you think that they have enough to take it over the top.
Yeah, and I think some of the Santos goals were just like golazos. it's like, okay, when is
So
when are the, when is that?
you don't rate golazos, do you?
I rate golazos as very hard to come by, and I won't say it's luck, but I'll say that the time for golazos can run out. Like you're not going to make those every single time. It's going to hit a post, or it's going to just go off off goal, and if they can keep it up, then they're the deserved champs. But I tend to think those types of golazos come to an end after a while. But they didn't have Giannini in the last game, so that's another thing to consider.
All right. Well, there you have it. Jakey's picks Toluca. We're gonna ask our resident Guerrero. Now, in the first leg, you picked against your team because you thought Tigres would win, and made sense. But then in the second one, you're like, hell no, I'm not picking against Santos against America.
Yes, that's true.
So now you have a final. So now you have. I mean, you can't pick against your team in the final.
I can't. You're right. I can't. And
However,
I won't. No. I know earlier in the season I picked Toluca, or at least I didn't pick them, but like during the middle of the season I kind of felt that they were the strongest team. So it doesn't surprise me that they're in the final, but I saw some weaknesses. They weren't as scary as I thought they were. So to echo the sentiment of like that everyone's kind of echoing is that it's a very even matchup. I think both teams are solid on each line. They both have lots of star power. Maybe I guess if we're gonna pick one single player, then maybe Sambu is probably the one name that stands out the most out of everyone. But I think Santos has not only Giannini but a solid midfield that's kind of like being led by two champs, and I think ultimately those two guys and the depth that we have now up and forward with all of them seemingly hitting a solid form, I like our chances. And if Nestor can come back and actually play to his normal form, or if not, I like our chances. I think they're going to pull it off.
well, I mean, Santos had the luxury of plugging in the guy Alcoba, who was a former Pumas player, who was when Picolin decided that it was that he didn't want to embarrass the league any longer, and he hung him up. Alcoba was the partner with Veron for 2 or 3 seasons. Pretty decent. Obviously, he's not the player he once was, but I mean, it was certainly someone that they could plug in. Obviously, Nestor Araujo is a much better player, so Santos has been able to hang in there. So that would be. I did notice, Dan, myself, and watching the Toluca Tijuana series, that Toluca does have some defensive vulnerabilities that can certainly be exposed. And I think that one thing that Santos has that I don't think Toluca does is that I think Santos knows how to close out games. And Toluca seems to have a problem with that, even at home. And I think that could certainly play into Santos' favor. But I will say this: I think that because of the fact that there's no tiebreaker, it is, if it's tied, it's going to extra time, and if it's tied after that, it's going to penalties. I think that this is going to go to penalties, and then take your pick. I'll tell you what: if Talavera stops like 2 or 3 of them, people are going to be begging for him to be brought in if Mexico has to go into penalties against somebody.
Well, he's not stopping shit. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Bringing it. Wow.
Sorry, the fanboy eked out for.
That's all right. That's all right. You're allowed.
It's yeah, man. I don't see. I've been listening, obviously watching closely the commentary by the different pundits from different networks, and yeah, I think everybody sees it as an extremely evenly match. But I think they give Toluca a little too much credit. But granted, I think they're they get more attention, maybe because of their proximity to the capital, and they've been around longer. And Santos kind of operates a little bit more quietly under the radar. But I just every position's really solid, and even and it seems like we have pretty good, decent backups, even when and then also, not to mention the coach. I think he's impressed everybody. Sadly, it wouldn't surprise me to see his name being thrown out after the summer, if they're able to pull it off. Because I mean, once somebody wins the championship, they immediately become candidates for the national team. But
Right.
the one area that I think that scares me is defensively, especially if Nestor is not there, because Izquierdos is. I think he's one player that's actually in really bad form, or maybe he's getting old and it's starting to show. But he's been, I think, a liability in the last during the Liga, especially. And I'm expecting a high scoring aggregate.
Really? So you think it could be like 5-4?
5-4, 6-4 wouldn't surprise me at all.
Now, this is the third time, if I'm not mistaken, that both Toluca and Santos have met. Well, not both, but Toluca and Santos have met in the final, and Toluca has won the previous two. And I would wager to say that Toluca and Santos, at least in the short season era, in Liga MX, have been two of the most consistent teams since the short season started, because they've both been in the league. Since then. Now, Santos did have about 10 years ago a little slip up where they were, along with Pumas, were fighting rather. That was not fun. And they've had a couple of, like they got Chepor, so they had to deal with that. And see, it's no fun to say that stuff, Dan, when we don't have our Chepologist on the show. But they have both been teams that have been incredibly consistent. I would even say Cruz Azul would be included among that group in the short season era. And Santos, I think, has won 5 or 6. Dan, is it 5 or 6 titles for Santos in the short seasons?
5.
5. And Toluca,
Yes.
obviously, I think they've won 7. So, the proof is definitely.
Is it 7? I thought they were more like around 8 or 9.
Oh, is it really that many? I thought it was just 7. I thought it was.
But I do think it's been a while for them, though. I may be mistaken, but I think they may be getting close to 10 years, maybe, since their last one.
Well, I think the last one was that Bicentenario against Santos in the Chepo era. They've had opportunity. They lost the final to Tijuana a few years ago, and then they've had chances to get to the final, but they lost to Tigres a couple of times. I mean, they've been in the Liga. I mean, again, and then they also lost the Conca Champions final to Cruz Azul, of all teams. But again, these two teams have been incredibly consistent. I think it's going to go to penalties, and it could be like a 3-3, 4-4 aggregate, like Dan says. But I do think it's going to go to penalties, and at that point, it's as Jorge says, it's going to be a toss up. So I would like to see. Well, honestly, I think I would probably pull for Santos, because I've just never really been a Toluca fan. I'm kind of like Ron in that sense. So I don't know.
I love the.
If I want to admit that out loud.
I love the. What's the guy's name? Cardoso. Those when he was playing, that Toluca team was awesome.
His goal celebration was pretty badass too. His like the step that he would make, like he's a ghost or whatever it is. It was he was fun to watch. They just obliterated teams. I mean, it wasn't even. I mean, they would go down 1-2, even 2-0, and no lead was safe with it. I was watching the Fox was doing the countdown, like greatest moments in the World Cup, and they did one where in the 1966 World Cup, North Korea actually they became the first Asian team to advance. They beat Italy, so they advanced to the quarterfinals. They played Portugal, and they go up 3-0 in the first 20 minutes or something like that. but Portugal had Eusebio, and they win 5-3. He scores 4 goals in the game to bring him back, and they end up winning the game 5-3. So Cardoso was kind of like Eusebio in that sense, that he was just he's like I got, don't worry about this. We're 2-0, no big deal. We're gonna score a bunch of goals. Don't even worry about it. And his goal that he scored, that counterattack where they have like the passing, one of the great goals in Liga MX history. If you folks haven't seen it, I highly recommend you YouTube. Just YouTube Jose Saturnino Cardoso. It'll probably be the first goal that comes up, and you'll know what goal we're talking about when it plays. It's like this very elaborate passing on a counterattack, and there's like 4 or 5 passes inside the 18-yard box. It's just a crazy good goal. Highly recommended. So, I guess we'll maybe we should consider having a show Sunday night, or maybe we'll just do our regular Thursday gig next week. We'll have to discuss that this week. But we do want to wrap it up here on the CantinaMX podcast. I want to thank our special guest, Tom Marshall, who came on, talked to us about England, gave us a very unvarnished discussion about England, which I really appreciated. Expects them to make it to the quarterfinals and then have their World Cup dreams come to an end at that point in the quarterfinals, and very optimistic about Mexico's chances in the upcoming World Cup as well. Thinks that they're gonna have a good performance in the World Cup. And on his way to Toluca, so we will certainly see what he has to say about the Liga MX final in Toluca. And of course, he said he couldn't go to the royal wedding because he's going to be on a bus to Toluca, so he had the RSVP no when he got the invitation. So we do thank Tom for coming on. We thank Joel Aceves for coming on. Chiquis, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man, no problem. Oh, by the way, actually in 2010, Toluca played Santos, and they went to penalties, and Toluca won.
Right.
In 2008, they went against Cruz Azul, but they played Santos in semifinals.
Right, and so Toluca won the last 2 championships via penalty kicks.
Yeah, so that was really close.
And I think, and I don't know if Dan remembers, but I'm pretty sure it was Fernando Arce who missed the clinching kick. I don't know if Dan.
I tend to block those things out.
I was about to ask you because I remember like every stupid freaking detail of things like that. I for whatever reason I can't compartmentalize that stuff. But anyway, Daniel Preciado, thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure's ours.
I'll be a little late, but I'm glad that you're able to hop on. And thank y'all for joining us. I know we had a very active chat tonight, so we do thank y'all for talking to us on the chat. And again, you can listen to this in our previous editions of the CantinaMX podcast. You can download from the podcast center on iTunes and catch us every week, usually on Thursdays. I know for the past couple of weeks we've done Wednesday because we wanted to make sure we could accommodate our guests. Next week, we may do a Sunday show. We'll definitely be on Thursday because we will have our final guest joining us, and it's going to be Juan Arango, who's going to join us and talk to us about Group H, which is the group that is Poland, Senegal, Colombia, and Japan. So we will be talking to Juan Arango next week, talking about Group H in the upcoming World Cup, and then we're going to have to look at our predictions that we had made right after the draw and see where we stand, and see if we want to make any amendments to our predictions, and we'll do that before the World Cup as well. And we'll figure out a way to invite y'all to do some of your predictions as well. We'll try to figure out some way to do that, and we'll be sure to let you guys know about that. Anyway, my name is John Jagu. We do appreciate y'all coming on and joining us this evening here live on YouTube. We'll do it again next week. Thank you guys for joining us. Talk to you again next week.